täna on 8. detsember 2009 ning Tallinnas lõppes 2-päevane konverents, kus rahvusvahelises seltskonnas arutati selle üle, et millised kaasamispraktikad on andnud paremaid tulemusi ja miks. Ning selle konverentsi pärast on Eestis ka Suurbritannia kaasamisega tegeleva organisatsiooni Involve asejuhataja Andersson ning kasutasime ka võimalust teda hea kodaniku kanali jaoks intervjueerida. Edward, these days every conversation starts with a question about crisis. So what do you think, what kind of impact has the current economic crisis had on involvement? Are organizations better at involving in these circumstances, or are people perhaps more willing to participate?
I think there's, on one level, it's the same kind of reaction that most parts of the economy have had. So the fear of losing a job, the cuts in budget, the sense that the good times are over, that's certainly happening. And I know that there is also fear that in hard times, governments and private organizations will start to pull back. They will stop doing the more innovative things that they've been able to afford in the good times. So there is a bit of fear that this will hurt engagement and that kind of work. I do think that there is also the possibility that the crisis, the recession, will actually be one of the best things to have happened to the world of public engagement and involvement. And let me explain what I mean by that, because that surprises some people. I think that in the good times, when we've had a fair amount of money to play around with, at times organizations have embarked on engagement when they shouldn't have. For us, it's always been a case of better engagement, not just more of it. And it becomes much harder to justify a tokenistic bad practice process, a process that you're just doing to look good in times when budgets are short. So in some ways, the recession might help us to get back to basics. It will help us to focus in on the occasions when involving citizens, when getting them to tell us what they want and what they need, will really make a massive difference. And it can also bring us back to the perhaps people doing things for themselves and the like. So there's a potential that the recession could actually bring out the best in organizations. And certainly in terms of volunteering, you can see that the recession has actually increased the amount of people that are willing to do things for free and work together. And that's really a resource that I think could be put to great use in terms of public involvement.
Yes, the latter is something that we have also witnessed in Estonia. But there is also a widespread belief that things with involvement would be better if it would be made mandatory. And as if there were a law that requires that every time there should be a proper involvement. So what do you think on that?
Well, in some ways, Britain is the world leader when it comes to laws and regulations around engagement. We've had planning consultation has been a requirement since the 60s. Engagement in the health service has been a requirement since 2001. And since April last year, local government has had a duty to inform, consult and involve citizens. And
you also have a code of good practice on involvement. That's part of Compact.
Yes, absolutely. So there's also code of conduct when it comes to engaging with the third sector, and also with consultations in general. So actually, the public sector in the UK, certainly England, has consultation and engagement requirements and laws coming out of their ears. Has it worked? That is the big question. I think what we can certainly say compared to 10 years ago is we've seen an increase in activity, there's no doubt. There's more, this is something that is no longer on the fringes of the public sector. It's the laws and the requirements have raised the profile of it. It's forced organizations to invest in roles, it's forced them to invest in training, and that's been positive. An example is participatory budgeting, getting people involved in budget decisions. 10 years ago, that was virtually unknown in the UK. 5 years ago, it was limited to a handful of cases. And this year, we're probably looking at hundreds of individual cases of councils doing it. So that's a massive increase, and it's largely come about because of the top-down encouragement that central government is giving. What I would say, that the downside of regulation is that you can force people to go through the motions. You can force them to send out the consultation paper, organize the meeting. But the results come about because there is a genuine desire to listen and understand what people want and then do something about it. And if that isn't present, then the method may well fail, and actually the flawed or the sham engagement exercise or consultation activity will lead to less trust, and it will be worse. The organisation will be worse off than they did nothing at all. So that is a potential problem in the UK right now, and I think at the moment I think we've reached the limits for what we can do with laws. I don't think any new laws would help in the United Kingdom. I think it's a case now of winning hearts and minds, of convincing the skeptics that this isn't just something we do for show. It's not just something we do because central government tells us to. This is something that we do because we get benefits from it. And more importantly, the citizens who we work for, the public sector works for the citizens, that they get something valuable from this kind of engagement.
By the way, whom do you think do you need to convince more, public officials or citizens to participate?
I think there are two sides of the same coin. On one hand, you've got the public officials who feel, for various reasons, that public engagement is not appropriate. Perhaps they feel that they've spent a lot of time building up expertise in the area, and that the public, who are they to say anything about, who are they to come in and claim to be able to say anything useful about this topic? There it's partly about making the case that actually many of the problems we face today, we have to know about the lived experience of participants. They are the people who use public services and know firsthand what works and what doesn't. And also many of the problems we face today, I'll use a health analogy. 100 years ago we had big problems with things like cholera and TBC. We had problems with epidemic diseases. How do you deal with an epidemic disease? Well, you vaccinate people, you build sanitation systems. Top-down responses work perfectly on these kind of problems. Today, the great killers in the Western world are things like heart disease, cancers, conditions linked to things like obesity, diabetes.
Lifestyle.
All lifestyle related, and actually in today's day and age, 100 years ago, maybe government could have done something top-down. They could have said, there is now a law that says that every citizen must exercise every week. It doesn't work in today's liberal society. We need the active cooperation and collaboration of citizens to deal with the problems that we face. That the Copenhagen Climate Summit is going on as we speak. And that is an issue that, climate change is a massive issue that we require the citizens' active engagement in to actually achieve the results that we want. In terms of the citizens, in the UK at the moment, they are very sceptical of many engagement exercises. And that goes back to the problem I highlighted earlier, the problem that many citizens feel that the engagement exercises that are being carried out by government are faulty. They are just there for show. The government doesn't actually mean it. They're just pretending to listen, and nothing's going to happen with the results. And until we can convince citizens of that, I think we are going to struggle to increase participation. So I think there has to be more feedback, better feedback, and when we do engage, we have to do so sincerely and with enough resources and commitment. The good news is, I think, by saving on the bad consultation that's been going on before, I think we'll have enough resources to do that well, even with reduced budgets. And I think in terms of convincing civil servants, seeing is really believing. So the more officials you can take along, they can see firsthand that when you ask difficult questions of ordinary members of the public, they are able to rationally deal with that information and act on it.